Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Collider Mailbag, the all mailbag show where all we do is take your mailbag questions. And listen, if you've got questions, everybody keeps asking me, how do I get a question on the show? You email your questions to collidervideo@gmail.com. Send on in your questions. Maybe you'll see your question show up on an episode of Movie Talk from Monday to Friday, or maybe you'll see your questions pop up on a episode of Mailbag here on the weekends. My name is John Campia. I am the senior producer over here at Collider Video, and doing Mailbag again. I did one from Comic-Con last weekend. So much fun. It's so good to be back doing mailbags again. And it's great to be back. Now let's move on and start things off with the first official question for this installment of Mailbag, this Saturday edition. And we start off this episode taking a question from Adrian Burth, who writes, "My question is about the DC universe as it relates to the Batman movies. With Batman vs. Superman having an older, veteran Batman, do you think the standalone films will tell the story moving forward from that? Or will it be stories from the past run-ins with villains? Thanks, and keep up the great work." Well, it's a great question, Adrian. A lot of people have been wondering that because we know we are getting Batman standalone films. We found out during Comic-Con that Ben Affleck and DC's Jeff Johns are going to be writing the first standalone Batman film, and Ben Affleck will be directing it. And so a lot of people were wondering, are these going to be stories moving forward, or are these going to be prequels, talking about things in the past? It's a great question because there is potential there in telling stories from the past, right? Because we're getting this veteran Batman who I think has been retired for a number of years. I'm not totally sure about that, but I believe this Batman that we're getting in Batman vs. Superman has been retired for a number of years. So going back and telling stories about old classic villains of a younger version of this Batman, all that kind of stuff is good. The reason I doubt that they're going to do it, I'm not saying they're definitely not. I'm just saying the reason I doubt that they're going to do it, go backwards and tell prequel stories. There might be flashbacks in the movies, but the reason I doubt you're going to see a new standalone Batman film that's based in 1989 or whatever like that is because, well, Ben Affleck is 40 plus, 42, 43, 44 years old. So you're going to have to go back probably at least 10 years because I don't know how long they're saying he's been out of the game for, how long he's been retired for. But you're going to have to go back at least that many years. And do you want to do that? Also, DC right now seems very, very committed to building this huge shared cinematic universe. It feels to me, and listen to the words I'm using, feels to me. It feels to me like they're going to be using each movie to build up the next movie. They're going to be using each movie to hopefully make a great standalone movie, but also leverage that movie to build up and set up the next piece of the puzzle that they're trying to put together. A Batman standalone movie that is set in the past, it's like a prequel, while there are creative ways you can do to allude to things that might happen in the future, they would literally be a standalone film. It would be an isolated film. And I have the feeling that DC wants to use each movie for a very specific purpose to build up the next movie and to build up the next character and all that kind of stuff. Make a great standalone film, but also leverage it to set up other things in the future. And it's much easier to do that if you're telling stories moving forward as opposed to doing prequels. It's not that you can't do it telling prequels. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I think you'll agree that it's easier to do that if you stay in a current timeline. And as a fan, I really want to see everything in real time. I don't want to see them jumping back and forth between timelines and stuff like that. I want to see them tell this story in real time. Start with Batman vs. Superman. Then move on to Suicide Squad, which hopefully tells the story moving forward. Then a Batman standalone film, Wonder Woman film, Justice League film. I want to see everything happen in, linear time. I don't want to see them jumping back and forth. That's just me as a fan. That doesn't mean that it can't work if they do it the other way. It could, and it could be magnificent. I'm just saying, if you're asking me what I would prefer as a fan right now, I want to see them telling stories in time, in a linear fashion, all moving forward, one thing building on top of the next. And I think that's the way they're looking at it moving forward. Again, that doesn't mean it's impossible, but that's the way I think they're going to do it. Thanks for the question. All right, the next question today comes to us from Ishaan Parmar, who writes, Hi, Collider crew. I love your show and watch it daily. Well, thank you so much, Ishaan. My question is about the MPAA rating system. Personally, I don't like the rating system. I think that the rating system can tie the hands of a film's creative team behind their back and doesn't allow some children and teens under 17 to see some films because of the material, like strong language, that they've probably already been exposed to. It's crazy that films like Transformers can have massive amounts of violence and it gets a PG-13 rating, while a film like The King's Speech has one scene where a character drops the F word more than once and it gets slapped with an R rating. Thoughts on how to fix the rating system? Well, thanks a lot for the question, Ishaan. And you raise up an issue that a lot of people like to bring up in talking about the rating system and what's fair and what's not fair. And throwing fuel on this fire about the rating system from the MPAA, a couple of years ago, there was a documentary called, I believe it was called This Film Is Not Yet Rated, that really looked at the rating system. Now the filmmakers made it was a very biased film. Their purpose was showing that it's bad. It wasn't meant to be a balanced, let's look at both sides of the issue kind of thing. It was very, very biased, but it was a very, very good documentary called This Film Is Not Yet Rated. And it brought a lot of the issues that filmmakers, smaller studios, smaller filmmakers wrestle with when it comes to the MPAA, when it comes to the rating system. Now, I, for one, have never really cared that much about the rating system because ultimately, here's the thing, adults can see whatever they want to see. You know, people over 18, 19 years old, anybody who's an adult can see whatever they want to see. There is no real censorship. I mean, I can watch porno if I want. You can watch porno if you want. There's not really censorship for me. I'm an adult. I can watch whatever the heck I want. The issue, though, about what gets rated R, what doesn't. Look, let's admit this first right up front. There is no system that you'd be able to put in place that everybody would agree with. There is none. There is no perfect system, all right? Because you can say, well, for me, saying 5 F-bombs and showing one scene of topless nudity is okay to still be PG-13. Okay, you can say that, but you're going to have millions of people that disagree with you. Oh, then so I might be able to say, okay, no F-bombs. If you drop one F-bomb, you're rated R, no nudity. Okay, I can say that, and millions of people will agree with me, but millions and millions of people will disagree with me as well. Let's just admit the fact. There is no system that everybody will agree on. There's just not, okay? So that being said, that kind of points to the fact that this system that we have right now is not perfect. It's not. There are flaws in it. But I think we need to acknowledge that any system that we try to replace it with will also be seen by millions and millions of people as also being flawed. Now, let's go to something you brought up in your email, okay? And this is a touchy one. But you can say, will you say something like, I just think it's ridiculous that, just because there's a bunch of F-bombs or whatever, that we're not letting children go in and see the movie when they've probably been exposed to it already. Well, okay, but that's not your decision to make. Like, here's the thing. I'm not a parent, okay? I don't have any kids. But if I did have kids right now, and you were to say that to me, I would say to you, who says you have the right to decide what's okay and not okay for my kids to see? That's what I would say. Now, I don't have any kids. But it's like a lot of people seem to want to take away parents' ability to make decisions for what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate for their own kids. And look, the MPAA, remember, even things that are rated R, in America at any rate, I think it's different in Canada, but in America, even if a movie is rated R and you're underage, if a parent thinks it's okay for you to see that film, a parent can still bring in their kid who's underage. But it just then becomes the responsibility of the parent or the guardian, idealistically. And there's lots of loopholes and there's lots of holes in that. Totally. I'm just talking about on the surface, okay? On the surface, the way that it works is that, hey, look, if I was a parent and I had a 15-year-old kid or a 14-year-old kid and there's an R-rated movie, I can still bring my kid to that movie. It's just that kid, that 15, that 13, that 12-year-old kid, whatever, cannot go and just on their own. The analogy I've often used is this. Let's say I lived in a neighborhood, okay, and I had a couple of kids, and they were like 12 years old, whatever, 13 years old. And up the street was a neighbor's place. And that neighbor was going to play porn. I'm using an extreme example just so you understand the principle, okay? And because an R-rated film in the theater is not the same as porn, I understand that. I'm just saying the principle here, okay? That guy up the street was showing porn in his house. And he was letting neighborhood kids come in. Letting neighborhood kids come in to watch porn without me knowing. I'm going to get, and you would get, super upset with that dude saying, you are letting my kid watch porn. That you are violating my rights as a parent. You are circumventing my authority as that kid's parent. And you are just showing that without my consent, without anything like that. And that dude living up the street showing porn to my 12-year-old kids and I are going to have issues, okay? Probably some violent issues. So the principle there then is movie theaters, and I know there's going to be lots of different points of view on this, and that's a good thing. From my point of view, at any rate, movie theaters who are going to show inappropriate stuff for kids, okay, whether that's nudity or excessive violence or excessive language, whatever, I don't think you have the right as a movie theater to just let my kids in, to invite in 12-year-olds just so you can make a buck off of my children, all right? That would be the height of greed on movie theaters' parts. If they were to say, yeah, just screw whatever the parents want, let the kids in so we can get their money. Because we know the 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, they're going to want to come see this booby movie. They want to come see some titties. They want to come see this, so let's let them in. Who cares what their parents think? Let's just take their $10 and let them in and take their money. That movie theater and I are going to have issues. And so, but I just think, again, with this whole censorship thing, and trust me, I know there are 1,000 other points that we're not getting to here. Believe me, I know that. This is a complicated issue. I'm just saying in the most basic of terms, what it comes down to is we are not talking about adults, we're talking about children. The rating system does not affect adults. The rating system affects children and filmmakers who want to go and get the little kids' money. Let's get the little kids' money. And so, look, at the bottom line is the current rating system perfect? No, it is not. So many problems with it. But I honestly can't think of a better one that doesn't just serve the greed of movie theaters and filmmakers to take little kids' money regardless of what it is we're showing them, or doesn't violate the rights of parents to be the ones who decide what is and isn't appropriate for their children to see. I can't think of one. That doesn't mean there's not a better solution. I'm just saying I haven't been able to think of one. That's all. I would love to hear what you guys think about it. And, you raised an interesting point, too, about the Transformers violence. Transformers violence that's the neat thing. We've talked about this on Movie Talk before. It's really weird. You can have robots just destroying each other, cutting off other robots' heads, tearing out their gears, doing all this kind of robots, or aliens. You can do that to aliens, too. But we see it as a culture as a different thing than when you're doing it to other human beings. When you're chopping off other human beings' heads or tearing out their guts instead of their gears, we see that differently. And I think we should see that a little bit differently. But it is weird. There's a fine line, right, between that kind of stuff. So again, ultimately what it comes down to is, number one, there is no perfect system. Number two, that means the system we have is certainly not perfect and there are problems with it. Number three, we do need some kind of system to have in place, even if it's an imperfect one. And number four, this is a hugely complicated issue that I don't have the ultimate answer to. I don't think anybody has the ultimate answer to. And we'll just have to kind of feel it out as we go. I'm sure the rating system will change as we pass through the next 5, 10, 15 years, and it'll always evolve. But I don't think, even as it evolves, we'll ever get to one where we're all happy with it. Good question, though. Awesome question. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Arnold Bello, who writes, "Greetings, Collider crew, and congrats on the move to Collider." Well, thank you very much. I recently watched the movie The Untouchables, and I was really impressed with the chemistry between the main characters. I know that chemistry is an important part of a movie, so my question is this. Which movie stands out to you on how good the chemistry is between the cast? Thanks, and keep up the great work. Hi, Mom. Well, hi, Arnold's mom. Yeah, great. Seriously, chemistry between the characters on screen is probably one of the most underrated things about what goes into making a movie great. It's certainly not the only thing that makes a movie great, but it is one of the most underrated things. And when you bring up a film like the one you mentioned, The Untouchables, and you got guys like Andy Garcia, seriously, the chemistry between Andy Garcia, Kevin Costner, Sean Connery, and the other cast in the film, Robert De Niro, is so good. They're not just a bunch of great individual actors, because we've seen movies that are loaded with great individual actors, but that chemistry isn't there. It doesn't quite click. In The Untouchables, that is a great example of these great actors playing very, very different roles, but they play them in such a way that the chemistry on screen just becomes tangible, and it's awesome to watch. A couple of the ones that stand out to me, and I'm sure you guys could bring up a lot of great examples of movies with great chemistry, but one of the great examples to me is The Godfather. In The Godfather, you are just loaded with incredible acting talent. But really what makes that movie hum, besides the incredible story and great direction, all that kind of stuff, is that chemistry between all those characters. Because you have such a diverse group of characters that are so unique and different that sometimes on screen, those types of characters can feel like they clash against each other. I'm not talking about conflict. I'm saying they just don't fit. But in The Godfather and Godfather Part 2, they just found a way to really, really make that work. Another one that is magnificent as far as on-screen chemistry between a bunch of very diverse characters is Shawshank Redemption. Whether you're talking about guys like Tim Robbins, Clancy Brown, Morgan Freeman, Bob Gunton. I think Bob Gunton's the one who played the warden of the prison. Just every single piece of that puzzle, every single piece in that cast puzzle fit together so well, and they played off each other so great. Clancy Brown as the prison guard, and all. It was so magnificent. But honestly, this is going to be a weird one. My favorite example of great on-screen chemistry, okay? I've already talked about Shawshank Redemption, Godfather. 40-Year-Old Virgin. The 40-Year-Old Virgin, to me, it is always my number one or my number two favorite comedy of all time. It often switches places with Noises Off, the John Ritter, Christopher Reeve, Carol Burnett masterpiece, Michael Caine. Anyway, Noises Off and 40-Year-Old Virgin are always my top two favorite comedies of all time. One day you'll ask me, I'll say 40-Year-Old Virgin is my all-time favorite. The next day you'll ask me, I'll say it's Noises Off. It's always one of the two. But anyway, one of the things that really elevates it, the writing is great, the direction from Judd Apatow is great, the individual performances are great. It's what made Steve Carell a superstar. But what really makes that movie hum is the way those, especially the four main characters, Damoni, Seth Rogen, Paul Rudd, Steve Carell, the chemistry between the four of them on screen, every scene the four of them are together is just hilarity. It's just incredible. I mean, you can get a movie like Step Brothers, right? Which is awesome. Another one of probably in my top 10 favorite all-time comedies of all time. And you have incredible comedic giants like Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly in there, and they are great together. But even though they're great together, that chemistry isn't as good as the chemistry between those four guys in 40-Year-Old Virgin. And to me, that's the one that really stands out to me. And look, you can have, like anything else, you can have a movie with a great lead actor who gives a great performance and the movie still ends up being bad. You can have a movie with a great director. There are many different pieces, many different moving pieces to the puzzle that need to come together and work right in order for a film to end up being good. But chemistry between the on-camera talent is one of the big ones, and one of the ones we don't pay enough attention to, honestly, and I'm guilty of that as well. But anyway, I want to know what you guys think. Jump into the comments section and let me know what you think are some of the great examples of on-screen chemistry between casts that really make a movie hum. I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from King Cole, who writes, "Hey guys, love the show. Never miss an episode." Well, thank you so much, Cole. I'm glad to see my Campia back with the crew. My question is about Will Smith's role as Deadshot. When he was first cast, I was one of those people happy about it and thinking he would become the living embodiment of Deadshot, a lot like he became Clay in Ali. But after the first trailer, I'm a little worried that he will just be playing himself in Suicide Squad. Let's go save the world sounded identical to Men in Black and Independence Day Will Smith. Should I be worried? Well, I am also one of those guys who, when they announced Will Smith, got really excited because Will Smith is a terrific performer. He's not just the Fresh Prince anymore. That evolved years ago. He is a great example. I think Will Smith and Mark Wahlberg are like the poster children of guys who started off as something else, musicians, right? And then slowly over the years and dedicated themselves to becoming good at acting. They dedicated themselves. Read up on what Will Smith and Mark Wahlberg both did. Once they decided they wanted to make that transition from music to acting, the processes and the training and the work that both of them put in over the span of years and years and years and years, and gradually got better and better and better to the part now that when they show up in a movie, you want to look forward to seeing it. I was never worried about Will Smith being in Suicide Squad because of his talent. I think he's got the talent to do it. He's gotten Academy Award nominations for a reason. Those weren't flukes. Whether you're talking about things like, I think it's 7 pounds, 5 pounds, 6 pounds, whatever. Not a good movie, but his performance in it was excellent. When you're looking at him in movies like The Pursuit of Happiness, his performance is awesome. And of course, you mentioned his performance in Ali, which actually got him an Academy Award nomination. He has evolved into a great actor, not just a great action guy who can sell a movie or musician turned actor. He's a great actor. The thing I was personally worried about, and I think my worries were unfounded. I think we've come to see that it's not really an issue. My worries were with all the stories going on about Will Smith, whether it's films like, he was supposed to be Django in Django Unchained. And him talking, Quentin Tarantino tells these stories about how Will Smith ultimately backed out because he didn't think the movie focused enough on him. He needed to be, like, even though Django is the hero of the movie, Christoph Waltz's character was also a hero in the movie. And Will Smith, you can read up on this. Quentin Tarantino tells a story. Will Smith wanted more of the attention off of the Christoph Waltz character and put onto him and put onto Django. I don't think Christoph Waltz should kill, Leonardo DiCaprio. Let's change it and make it so I kill Leonardo DiCaprio. Let's put all the attention on me. And then when you hear things about the stories going on about Independence Day and what kept him from being in it is that he wanted more of the attention. He wanted his family brought in, all that kind of stuff. It's those kinds of stories. And granted, I'm not in the room. I didn't hear him say this stuff. These are just the stories I'm reading, all right? So keep that in mind, just stories. But it's those kinds of stories that make me concerned, that made me a little bit apprehensive at first when I heard that Will Smith was going to play Deadshot, that it was going, instead of being a Deadshot movie, or instead of being a Suicide Squad movie, it was going to be a Deadshot movie. Because if Will Smith's in it, he probably only agreed to be in it if they could make it most of the attention on Deadshot. And you know what? From what I'm seeing, let's be fair, from what I'm seeing and from what I'm reading in the first trailer I saw, that doesn't appear to be the case. It looks like Will Smith is bringing his incredible talent to be a part of the ensemble. Instead of making the movie about him, it looks like he's just come on and been a part of the ensemble. And if that's the case, then there's nothing but good news here, because Will Smith is incredibly talented. And I think what they're putting together here, David Ayer is a great director. I think most people on the planet love that Suicide Squad trailer. So now we go back to the main heart of your question. Should we be worried that instead of getting a Deadshot, we're just going to get Will Smith in a mask? And look, here's the thing. You cast certain people in certain roles to bring a piece of themselves in, right? I mean, let's look at Chris Pratt and Guardians of the Galaxy. We talked to Kevin Feige and James Gunn. Remember, we had Kevin Feige, James Gunn, and Chris Pratt in studio with us. And one of the things they said was, we wanted whoever was going to play Star-Lord to do what Robert Downey Jr. did in the sense of infusing their own personality into that character. And they said we looked at Chris Pratt and we thought, yes, we want, because look, you look at Star-Lord, that's Chris Pratt, man. That's Chris Pratt half just being himself and half being the character on the written page. They wanted him to infuse that into him because that's kind of what you get if you want a great performance. Now, you'll get some of the world's greatest actors of all time, like a Daniel Day-Lewis, who just becomes a different character. That's great. That's awesome. But if you've got a character like Deadshot, and David Ayer and DC and Warner Brothers are looking at this character Deadshot and think, the way he's written, who would really work for this? Will Smith. With his type of personality and stuff like that, he would be great for Deadshot. So they bring him in to give us a great Deadshot. Then let's not be worried if we see some Will Smith-isms in there, because that's part of the reason they went on and got it. Just like when we see Star-Lord, there's a lot of Chris Pratt in it, but that's why they got Chris Pratt to play it. So I'm actually not concerned about it. Was the line in the trailer, "Let's go save the world," was that a little cheesy? Yeah, I wouldn't have put that in the trailer. I do. That's one of the things in the trailer that I wish they had left out. But honestly, it doesn't make me worried. The notion that maybe they wanted Will Smith because Will Smith-isms is what will elevate the Deadshot character, that doesn't worry me. That's probably a good thing. We've seen it work before. We've seen it not work before, but I'm not surprised and I'm not worried about it. And I don't think you should be worried about it either. And now watch, it's going to be terrible. But now I have high hopes for it, and I think it's going to work out just fine. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Owen Morse, who writes, "Hey guys, a while back there were discussions and opinions online that Benedict Cumberbatch was appearing in too many movies and people were getting bored of him. Therefore, do you think that we are becoming oversaturated in roles played by Jennifer Lawrence?" Thanks a lot for the question, Owen. Jennifer Lawrence has become kind of a lightning rod, a little bit of controversy amongst film fans. A lot of film fans, myself included, see her as this ridiculously talented actress who can play just about anything in any kind of role and bring power and passion to the role. She's awesome. So I want to see her in as many films as possible. Then you get other people who, thinks, well, she's just the popular flavor of the month. There's not a lot of substance to her. We're getting tired of her. She's oversaturated. And you know what? The only reason it feels like we're being oversaturated with Jennifer Lawrence is because we pay so much attention to her. That's it. When you really break it down, Jennifer Lawrence right now is working in about 3 films per year. Now, understanding the average film takes anywhere between 2 to 3 months to shoot, sometimes less. So that means she's working in about 9 months out of the year. She's working. That's not uncommon. It's not uncommon to be in like 3. Now, Samuel Jackson can appear in like 8 films a year, but her being in 3 films a year is not uncommon. Let's just look for a second at like Hugh Jackman. In 2015, he's appearing in 3 films. He's got Chappie he was in. He's got Broadway 4D coming out, and he's got Pan coming out. 3 films in 2015. Hugh Jackman is also going to be in 3 films in 2016. He's going to be in X-Men Apocalypse. We all know he's going to be in X-Men Apocalypse. He's going to be in The Greatest Show on Earth, the Barnum and Bailey show. And he's going to be in the movie about the English ski jumper in the Olympics, Eddie the Eagle. He's going to be in the Eddie the Eagle movie. So there's 3 films too. That's the same pace as Jennifer Lawrence, except we're all paying more attention to Jennifer Lawrence right now. So it seems like she's in all these movies. Well, in reality, if we just step back for a second and really look at it, she's not appearing in all that many. She is a booked, busy actress who's working a lot, but no more than a lot of other actors who are in successful stretches, and they're keeping themselves busy and they're working a lot. It's 3 films a year. It's actually not uncommon, and it's not all that much. So no, I don't think we're getting oversaturated with Jennifer Lawrence. I think it's just fine. I think I like what she's doing. Everybody wants to work with her because she always delivers great performances, and her movies do pretty well at the box office. So it just makes sense. So I personally don't have any problem with it. That's just me. All right, let's move on to the next question today. And the next question today comes to us from Oscar, who writes, "Love your show. I'm a huge Warcraft fanatic, and I've been looking forward to this movie for over a decade. And now that it's finally coming to the big screen, I couldn't be more excited." Well, you and me both, buddy. During Comic-Con, Duncan Jones said that the movie was pretty much finished and that he had around 10 VFX shots, visual effects shots, left to do, and that he was now just going to sit on his hands and wait. So my question is, are they really going to let Warcraft sit and wait until next summer? Or are they going to keep working on it and flesh out the CGI some more? 1 year is an awful lot of time being wasted if they aren't going to if they're not going to keep busy by polishing the movie until release. Anyway, thanks guys, and keep up the good work. Well, thanks so much for the question, Oscar. And I know it can sound like it's a big deal. First of all, the idea of if you've got time, keep working on something. No, I don't like that philosophy. I think that's what inexperienced people will do. If you're experienced at something, let's say you're building your car and you know you've got your car built right, but you've still got 7 weeks until the race. Do you keep fidgeting with it? Or because you're experienced and you know, no, it's right, it's done. The experienced guy will then take his hands off and step back and say, we like it the way it is. Tinkering with it now will not do anything good to it. We might actually hurt it if we keep tinkering. And I think that's the place that these guys, I think it's Relativity and Duncan Jones, find themselves in right now. They're done the film, or they're almost done the film. Time to take your hands off and step back. Just because a movie's done, that doesn't mean you have to rush into theater. There's so much there's so much strategy that goes into releasing these films. Remember, there are high stakes in the movie business because for every movie, these companies are investing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. People's livelihoods depend on this. So they want to be very strategic about how they make the movie and very strategic about how they release the movie as well. Because, having it come out on this week or having it come out on this week could be the difference of $17 million. It could be that difference. So they have picked, in whatever their strategy is, they have picked a release date that they believe will work well. And they believe that gives us a year to do this event in 2 months, then this event in 3 months, then release this in 5 months, then do this event in 7 months, have this big trailer reveal in 9 months, and then have the movie come out. Like, they're very, very strategic about how they want to do this. A movie being completed and then sitting on a shelf for 10 months, 1 year, is not uncommon. I mean, it's not the norm, but it's not totally and shockingly uncommon. A lot of movies will sit on a shelf for a year and a half, or they'll sit on a shelf for 2 years. There are movies. Let's take the example of that little horror film, Case 39, with Renee Zellweger and Bradley Cooper. Okay, remember that little horror film came out a couple years ago? That movie was actually shot in 2006. It then came out in 2010. That movie sat on the shelf for 4 years. Look at a movie like Fanboys. We just had the Fanboys director, Kyle Newman. I was so excited. He was actually on our panel with us. I love Kyle Newman. He's got a new film out called Barely Lethal with Samuel L. Jackson, Haley Steinfeld, Jessica Alba. Anyway, check it out if you get a chance. But anyway, that movie was done in 2006 as well. And it didn't get a theatrical release until 2009. There are other examples too of lots of movies that sat on the shelf, whether it's like, not the movie's not called Wolverines, Red Dawn, the Red Dawn remake, that sat on the shelf for years. Lots of movies will sit on the shelf for years and years and years. To sit on a shelf for 10 months, like Batman v Superman is pretty much done. It's pretty much done. They're taking their time right now because they know they've got a lot of time because they moved the release date twice and kept pushing it back. But lots of movies get done and then it sits and it waits. And they sit and they wait until their strategy for how they want to release the film comes about. So don't worry about it being a year away. Don't worry. They're not wasting time. They know when they want this movie to come out and they just want to be ready for it and follow all their strategy for it. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Colby. And Colby writes, last night I saw Jaws on the big screen at the Cinerama here in Seattle, and I wondered, did they have to get permission from the rights holder to show it, and did they have to share revenue with the rights holder? How does it normally work when a theater shows an out of print or / out of distribution films? Great question. There are different answers for that. This isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of answer. There are a lot of different ways that you can do that. But yes, ultimately, no matter which answer you come up with, you got to get permission to show the films. Now, how you go about getting permission, there can be many different ways to do that. But I love this question because it gives me an opportunity to share with you that you might have heard us talk about this a couple of times. There's this great service out there, a company called Tugg, T-U-G-G. It's called Tugg, right? And what Tugg does is they work out arrangements with studios and independent filmmakers that you give them the rights to, Tugg goes out and gets the rights to show their films. And then what happens is you go then and work with Tug, because Tug already went out and did all the heavy lifting. They got the rights to show films. Now you work with Tug to try to set up a screening. So let me bring up their website here for a second. So this is a look at the Tug website. Now, right now on here, you see a bunch of indie films. And don't worry about all the indie films on here. They also have a big catalog of a lot of big Hollywood films. But here's basically how Tug works. So let's say you wanted to show a movie like, I don't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger's True Lies, okay? So then here's how it works with a movie like True Lies. What you do is you get a hold of Tug, right? And you look in their catalog to see if they have True Lies. And they do have True Lies in their catalog. Then what you do is you say, let's say you live in Seattle, okay? You look up a list then of the theaters that Tug has arrangements with to show Tug movies. And there are a lot of theaters. So you find a theater in Seattle that Tug works with, and you say to Tug, okay, I want to promote and put on a screening on the big screen of Arnold Schwarzenegger's True Lies, my all-time favorite action film. And I want to show it in this Seattle theater on this date. Okay, so now then what happens is Tug says, okay, now we will set this up. Now you, as the promoter of the film, you have to sell at least 40 tickets. You have to get 40 tickets sold. So Tug will set up a ticket purchasing page for you. And we'll tell you, now you promote this screening, you point people to come to this ticket purchasing page, and if you sell 40 tickets at $7 a piece, then the screening becomes locked. That means it's actually happening now. Like if you only sell 10 tickets, then you're gonna have to cancel the event. But once you sell 40 tickets, that means the event is now happening. And then if you sell 50 tickets, 100 tickets, whatever, but you just have to sell at least, they call it the threshold. You have to cross that threshold. For some screenings, it'll be 40 tickets. For some, it'll be 30. For some, it'll be 60. You know, it'll depend. It'll vary. But once you sell or get 40 people to buy tickets online, the event becomes locked, and now it's absolutely happening. And then you split the revenue with Tug. And then Tug worries about paying the studios or the rights holders for their movies or whatever. So we here at Collider Video and at Movie News, formerly Movie News, we've talked a lot about maybe we should do a special Collider Video screening series at an AMC theater. We'll like maybe once a month we'll screen an old movie and do a Q&A and try to bring in like one or two of the writers or directors or cast from that old movie and stuff like that. We thought about doing, one of my favorites is Galaxy Quest. We thought about doing a screening for Galaxy Quest. Maybe we still will. And all you have to do, you set up an account with Tug. You tell Tug, we want to do a screening of Galaxy Quest. Let's say you live in Los Angeles. We want to set up a screening of Galaxy Quest at the AMC Burbank 16 on September 4th. Tug will say, okay, we set up your ticket purchase page. You start promoting that screening. Send people over here to buy tickets. Set your ticket price. You get to set the ticket price. And then if you sell this many tickets, once you cross the threshold, it's locked in. And now you've got your screening, and Tug looks after the rest. So I just bring that up because you guys can get involved in hosting your own screenings. So once again, that website over there, and believe me, I am not getting any promotional consideration from Tug for this. I'm not getting paid for this. Just go to TUGG, there's the thing there, TUGG.com, tug.com, head on over there and you can set up your promoter's account and you can actually set up your own screening, look through their huge catalog. And this thing is also great for indie filmmakers because now as an indie filmmaker, you can put your movie into the Tug system and then set up a screening at a real movie theater for people to come and see. So that's why you see all those indie films listed on there as well. It's a great system. Go and check it out. And by the way, guys, if you know other systems like Tug, please leave it in the comment section. I'd love to look at other ones as well. All right, our last question for this Saturday comes to us from Omar Boumami, who writes, "Hi guys, really love the show. So my question is, now that San Diego Comic-Con is over, and after all that success that DC trailers had, do you think Marvel Studios made a bad decision for skipping this year's Comic-Con?" Well, Omar, that's really the big question a lot of us have been asking ever since Marvel announced that they weren't going to Comic-Con. Is this a mistake? And ultimately, I think there are many people who will say yes, it was, but I honestly don't think it was a mistake for them to not go. Because ultimately, what do they have to show? Here's the thing. The Batman vs. Superman trailer, which is one of the best trailers I have ever seen in my life, came out at Comic-Con, got a lot of attention. But do you think, really, it would have gotten any less attention if if DC and Warner Brothers dropped that trailer in 2 weeks? Not at Comic-Con? No, it would have gotten the same amount of attention. It really would have. And it wouldn't have been competing against movies like Deadpool putting out their trailer as well, and a bunch of other movies. So you could make an argument that the Batman v Superman trailer actually may have gotten a little bit less attention because it came out at Comic-Con when it was surrounded by 20 other things fighting for attention, instead of if it just dropped its trailer in 2 weeks on a day when nothing else dropped. And it just got all the attention. So Marvel, I think, knows this. And Marvel has set up their own events. Remember last year, they had that big event at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood where they announced the Marvel lineup for the next 5 years. I was there, Christian and Mark were there, a bunch of people were there, and it felt like Comic-Con Hall H, except I didn't have to camp out overnight for it. And Marvel had the whole platform just to themselves. They made their own thing and got tons of media attention for it. Just tons of attention that they didn't have to share with anybody else. They also have, Disney has D23 coming up, where you know they're going to highlight a lot of Marvel stuff, a lot of Star Wars stuff, a lot of Disney stuff. They have their own events that they're doing as well. So was it a mistake not to go? I still would have liked to have seen Marvel at Comic-Con, but if you're really going to get down to the hard fact of it, was it a mistake? Did they blow it by not going to Comic-Con? Honestly, if you're going to sit back and be rational about it, the answer is no. They didn't lose out on one single thing. And, Batman got a lot of attention, but it was going to get its attention no matter what. Did Marvel not go? And really, what did Marvel have to come and bring? Well, they could have showed some Civil War stuff. Yeah, they could have, but guess what? In a month or two, they're going to drop their first Civil War teaser. And it's going to get as much attention as it would have got if it played, maybe more attention than if it played at Comic-Con, being surrounded by a Deadpool trailer and an X-Men Apocalypse trailer and a Batman v Superman trailer and a Suicide Squad trailer. Yeah, they would have played a Civil War sizzler and it would have got some attention. But play a Civil War trailer in 2 or 3 months, it's going to get all the attention. So was it a mistake? I honestly don't think so. Anyway, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of Collider Mailbag. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, don't forget, once again, you can email in your questions to collidervideo@gmail.com. Send those questions in there, and we will do our best to see if we can get yours on the show. Remember, we get over 1,000 questions every week, so it's not great chances, so please don't be offended if you don't see your question on, but we will do our best. You guys can follow me on social media, on Facebook and on Twitter, just at John Campea. And make sure you're following Collider Video as well. Follow Collider Video on Twitter. And guys, if you love reading websites with movie news, the site to go to, of course, is collider.com. Make sure you go and bookmark that website there today. Just a great staff over there writing up great articles every single day. Make sure you follow our website, collider.com there as well. That'll do it for me, guys, for this installment of Collider Mailbag. Thanks so much for joining me for Collider Video. Until next time. Bye-bye.